Chapter 13, Communicating. Importance of communication, the role and benefits of effective communication in organizations. Two-way communication is when a receiver responds to a sender. Below is a model of two-way communication. Person A, which is the sender, intended meaning and encoding. Then communication channel over to person B, which is the receiver, decoding and perceived meaning. And that person gives feedback to person A. An example of two-way communication would be a conversation between an employee and a manager about the tasks at hand and how the employee has been performing. Today, about 1/3 of companies are conducting frequent and less formal check-ins for employees. During the check-ins, managers provide feedback and constructive suggestions to their employees. In return, the employees have a chance to ask questions about their current tasks at hand, which maximizes the on-job learning. These check-ins have replaced performance appraisals that usually take place just once per year. More frequent check-ins mean that employees have more chances to get feedback from their bosses as well as more opportunities to ask questions about their tasks at hand. Importance of communication, the role and benefits of effective communication in organizations. Two-way communication is more accurate than one-way communication because fewer mistakes occur and less problems arise in the future. This is because the receiver has a chance to ask questions, voice their concerns, and make suggestions. This helps the receiver to better understand what the sender is trying to say and, just as importantly, what this information means to them. One-way communication is when information only flows in one direction, from the sender to the receiver, with no response from the receiver. An example of one-way communication would be a manager yelling at an employee for making a mistake and then quickly leaving the scene. In this example, the employee wasn't given an opportunity to ask the manager any questions. This means that they are much more likely to make the same mistake again. If the manager stuck around to discuss the mistake with the employee, they could have learned from their mistake instead of simply being scolded for it. Communication problems to avoid. Pitfalls can occur in every stage of the process. In the encoding stage, people may misuse information or put it in the wrong information. In the transmission stage, things might get lost in translation, or you might have put something too small on a slide for the audience to read. In the decoding stage, the most common errors occur when you take the wrong information from what is being presented. The two most common processes where problems arise is perception and filtering. Perception, which is receiving and interpreting information, and filtering, which is withholding, ignoring, or distorting information. Communication problems to avoid. Perception and filtering. Perception becomes a big problem because of our self-interested motives to interpret information and our own biases. The best way to combat this is to take other people's perspective into your own interpretations and to adopt others' stance on a certain topic. Filtering has more to do with trying to appeal to a person rather than fix an issue. This would include things like telling your boss what they want to hear, not listening to certain feedback because of the person saying it, and not being honest with an employee as to not demotivate them. Overall, honesty is the best policy to fix certain issues. Because of these, effective managers need to be able to assume that not every employee knows exactly what they mean, and this should be able to communicate effectively because of this. Four main ways to avoid communication problems. Ensure that the receivers attend to the message being sent. Consider the other party's frame of reference and attempt to convey the message with that viewpoint in mind. Take concrete steps to minimize perceptual error and improper signals in sending and receiving, and send consistent messages. Different communication channels. Verbal/oral communication, face-to-face, telephone, or formal presentations. Any means where verbal communication is taking place to deliver a message. Written communication, texts, letter, or reports, means of communicating, where a message can be revised before delivered and the message stays the same even if relayed. Nonverbal communication, gestures, eye contact, objects, etc., that typically aid in conveying a message through verbal communication. Channel advantages and disadvantages. For the verbal and oral channel, the advantages would be direct and immediate feedback, and the receiver can sense sincerity of message. And for the disadvantages, there would be possible ill-considered statements and no formal record. For the written channel, the advantages would be revision prior to delivery, permanent record where the message is consistent if relayed, and for the disadvantages of the written channel, it would be that it lacks immediate feedback and the message may not be delivered as intended. Choosing the right channel. Effectiveness of channel is dependent on situation. Not all channels will convey the same message equally. Choosing the right channel depends on the message and its intent when delivered. Before choosing a channel, ask yourself how would you interpret the message if sent to you via different channels. Consider media richness, amount of information a channel conveys. When choosing a communication channel, choose one that is suitable for a complex or critical message. The more cues a medium sends to the receiver, the richer the medium is. If the message is important and requires various cues, points, or in-depth messages, choose a medium to face-to-face communication. This is the richest medium, offering a variety of nonverbal cues to the addition of words. Intended target and message. When choosing a communication channel, consider all whom might receive the message. For example, with nonverbal communication, for instance, in email, the message in the email is not only permanent with the paper trail, but it can easily be delivered to receivers not originally intended. Amount of feedback expected. Consider what message is being conveyed and if the receiver will understand that message with or without feedback. When sending a message, some senders are requesting feedback. However, not all communication channels make the receiver aware of that. When delivering a message through a channel, ask yourself if the receiver needs clarification. Does the communication channel offer an easy way to receive it? Becoming a better communicator. Strategies for improving communication skills, active listening techniques, and sender versus receiver. Strategies for improvement. Active listening, paying attention to the speaker, maintaining eye contact, and showing genuine interest in what they are saying. Language. Make sure to use clear and concise language that avoids complex terms while also striving for clarity to make sure the message is easily understood. Nonverbal communication. Watch your body language, facial expressions, and tone because they can impact how your message is received. Feedback. Ask for feedback to see how your messages are being perceived. Also, ask open-ended questions to encourage conversation and gather information. Emotion. Keep your emotions in check during the conversation to prevent misunderstandings or conflicts. Active listening techniques. Paraphrasing helps show that you are truly paying attention by rephrasing their words in the way that you interpreted it. This also helps the speaker know if their message is being accurately understood. Asking questions is also a cue to the speaker that you are actively listening and attempting to understand the message. Providing nonverbal cues like nodding and maintaining eye contact shows the speaker that you are being an active listener and how well you are understanding the message. Sender versus receiver. In a conversation, the sender is the person who is sharing information or sending a message. They are the ones that are essentially expressing their thoughts or feelings. The receiver is the person who is listening or receiving the message. They are typically actively engaged in processing and understanding what the sender is communicating. Improving information flow, enhancing downward communication, facilitating upward communication, and promoting horizontal communication.
Enhancing downward communication. Downward communication refers to the flow of information from higher to lower levels in the organization's hierarchy. Some examples would be directions to carry out a specific task, information intended to create understanding of the task and its relation to other organizational tasks, information about organizational processes and patterns. What is the purpose of downward communication? It's to implement goals, strategies, and objectives, job instructions and rationale, procedures and practices, performance feedback, and socialization. Enhancing downward communication. Advantages of downward communication include useful for management, it's good for organization, it's useful for employees, superiors are well informed, and there's a sense of belonging. Disadvantages of downward communication include it's time consuming, there's distortion, there's an authoritarian approach, it's over and under communication, there's different priorities, and there's no confidential matter. Facilitating upward communication. Upward communication is a process of information flowing from the lower levels to the upper levels. Here's a sample of upward communication. Starts from the faculty, then goes to assistant principals, to assistant superintendents, and lastly to superintendents. Advantages of upward communication. It includes feedback, constructive ideas, it helps decision making, establishes good relationships, there's mutual trust, and enhanced coordination. More advantages include the development of plan. The information received from subordinate plays an important role to help development of planning of the organization. Providing suggestions and opinions. By upward communication systems, subordinates take necessary suggestions and opinions from superiors about the work-related issues of the organization. It's also motivating to employees. Upward communication systems allow lower-level staff to express their attitude or opinion to upper-level staff. As a result, subordinates are influenced to work more towards fulfillment to target. Providing constructive suggestions. All employees are supplied with constructive and important messages that can help to implement the goals or objectives. Disadvantages of upward communication. Changes of information. In upward communication, subordinates may change their accurate information, so the top executive cannot take an accurate decision. Unwillingness. Sometimes subordinates don't send the information to their superior willingly, so the communication system may be disrupted. Fear of inefficiency. The main problem of upward communication is fear to superiors. Generally, superiors make a question about the employee's work position and efficiency. Many employees fear to communicate and share their ideas, constructive suggestions, and opinions with the superiors. Indiscipline. Sometimes employees communicate directly to superiors by avoiding proper channel or chain of command. Here, disciplines are not properly maintained. Bypassing. In the process of upward communication, sometimes workers directly approach the topmost authority with their suggestions or bypassing their immediate boss. This is harmful to any organization. Promoting horizontal communication. Horizontal communication normally involves coordinating information and allows people with the same or similar rank in an organization to cooperate or collaborate. Communication among employees at the same level is crucial for the accomplishment of work. Horizontal communication is essential for solving problems, accomplishing tasks, improving teamwork, building goodwill, and boosting efficiency. Advantages and disadvantages of horizontal communication. Advantages include coordination and faster communication. Disadvantages include differences in approach, lack of motivation, and presence of physical barriers. The following image is an example of horizontal communication at a bank. Boundaryless organization. What is a boundaryless organization? It's an organization in which there are no barriers to information flow. Types of boundaryless organizations. Modular and virtual organizations, outsource all functions that are needed, and only focus on what is important. Strategic alliance organizations is where two companies in the same industry form an alliance that benefits both of them. Network organizations outsource important information. This allows focus on the core business of the company. Advantages of boundaryless organizations. Ideas, information, decisions, and actions can move to where they are needed most. The free flow allows information to be available as needed. Information moves fast and easily. What are these types of communication, and how can we manage these? You can see there's formal communication versus informal communication. What is formal communication? Formal communication is the communication in which information flows through proper and predefined solutions. It follows a hierarchical chain that is generally established by the organization itself. This type of communication is crucial in a work environment to establish clear structure, promote professionalism, and ensure accurate conveyance of information, fostering a more organized and efficient workplace. What is informal communication? Informal communication is multidimensional. It flows freely in the organization without any restraint of predefined channels or routes. It is comparatively very quick and relational. In organizations, it is often called the grapevine. It is also important for the growth of a company because employees can discuss work-related issues more openly, which ultimately saves the company time and money. Managing formal and informal communication. Define clear channels, set formal channels for official info, cultivate respect, emphasize professionalism and formality, foster respectful information interactions. Provide guidelines, train on formal protocols, share informal communication guidelines and risk, adapt and seek feedback, adjust based on feedback, stay adaptable to changing work dynamics. Key differences between formal and informal communication. For formal communication, it's very time-consuming. Scope is restricted within the organization. There's a high level of secrecy. It's designed at the organizational level. Documentary evidence is available. No slang words are used. And the main motive is to fulfill organizational objectives. For informal communication, it costs less time. There's no boundaries. Privacy is not guaranteed. It occurs naturally. There's no supporting documents. Slang words are acceptable, and it's intended to meet personal interests or needs. Integration of multiple media channels. For unified brand messaging, it ensures consistency in messaging across various media channels and develops a cohesive brand voice and style that resonates across platforms. Cross-platform advertising utilizes targeted advertising campaigns across social media, search engines, and traditional channels. Implements consistent ad creatives and messaging for a seamless customer experience. Social media integration leverages social media platforms for both organic and paid reach and encourages user-generated content and reviews to enhance brand credibility. Content syndication. Repurpose content for various channels, such as blogs, videos, and infographics. And it shares content across platforms to maximize reach and engagement. Data-driven decision-making. It implements analytic tools to track performance across different channels. It uses data insights to refine strategies and allocate resources effectively.
Multiple channel communication strategies. Omni-channel communication framework. Develop an omni-channel strategy that seamlessly integrates communication across all channels. Ensure a unified and consistent customer experience regardless of the communication channel. Customer persona alignment. Tailor communication strategies to align with different customer personas. Identify preferred channels for specific customer segments to maximize engagement. Real-time communication. Implement real-time communication tools for immediate customer interaction. Utilize chat, messaging apps, and live chat for instant responses to customer queries. Personalized messaging. Use customer data to personalize messages across channels. Implement dynamic content that adapts based on customer preferences and behaviors. Thanks for tuning in to our project about communicating.